bracelet design made with red, white, and blue. Good for 4th of July or Memorial Day. Stars and stripes. And this is a version made more with floral colors, so the stars look more like flowers. And this is what we're going to make today in our video. So let's talk about the materials we're going to need. For this bracelet, you need 2 colors of Superduos. You need 1 color for the flower petals and another color for the outer border. You're also going to need 4mm round beads, 8 of them for the center of the flowers, and 62 of them for around the flowers. Now, in the red, white, and blue version, these 2 are white. Instead of flowers, they make a star. This is red for the outer border, and this would be dark iris blue. You're also going to need 11/0 Toho seed beads, 1 color that matches the around the flower color. In the red, white, and blue version, that's dark iris blue. If you are making this with another color flower, just keep in mind the color that goes around the flower, you want it to be really dark or subdued so that the flower kind of pops against this color. So I have chosen here just a really subdued gray that's not really shiny, it's kind of matte, so that the flower really pops next to it. You're also going to need a color of 11/0 Toho seed beads for the outer border. You're also going to need 2 6 or 8 seed beads to connect the clasp with jump rings. So, let's get started. I'm using a size 10 beading needle with 6-pound fire line, and I think in total I'm probably going to be using about 4 meters or 4 yards of fire line for this bracelet, but I can only comfortably use 2 at a time, 2 yards at a time. So I have 2 meters of thread here, and I'll just connect another segment later when I run out. So I'm going to start with the flower component, and I'm going to start with a Superduo, the 4mm bead, that's the center color of the flower, and another Superduo, checking both holes. I string that on. Then I'm going to go back down through only the 4mm. And here I'll tie a knot. And here I'll kind of I want to put this so that they're both of the Superduos are pointing out. I'll go back through the first Superduo. If I was doing the red, white, and blue version, all 3 of these beads would be white. Next, I put on a seed bead, Superduo, seed bead, Superduo, seed bead. And I'm using the color of seed bead that's going to be surrounding the flowers. Now, if I was doing the red, white, and blue version, all 5 of these seed beads, including these ones too, would all be white. And I'm going to go through the other hole, or the other Superduo at the other end here. And that kind of makes half the flower. Again, I put on a seed bead, Superduo, seed bead, Superduo, seed bead. Same colors as before. And I'll go through this Superduo. And when I pull that tight, that sort of completes the flower. Then I'm coming out of this Superduo, I'm going to go down through the other hole of the same Superduo. And I'm going to flip it over to start going around the outer edge. Add a 4mm bead. And go through the tip of the next Superduo. $4mm surrounding the flower through the next Superduo tip. Just continue that all the way around. $4mm bead through the next tip. Next, I add 3 seed beads. Coming out of the tip of this Superduo, I'm going back through the same hole, same direction. Then I continue through the next 2 seed beads. Add a seed bead, Superduo, checking both holes, and a seed bead. String that on. And here, I want to go back through the middle of these 3 seed beads, plus the next seed bead, Superduo, seed bead. I add a seed bead and go down through this seed bead. Through the next Superduo. Up through the next seed bead. Add a seed bead and continue up through this seed bead. I continue down through this side of the Superduo and up through the other side. Now, this is going to be the petal of the next flower component. So I add a 4mm bead, that's the center color, and a Superduo, checking both holes. String that on. I go back down through the 4mm seed bead, 4mm bead only. And I want to go back through this hole of this Superduo. Now at this point, I want to try to move things to where they're straight in line. Again, I put on 2 Superduos, checking both holes, and 3 seed beads alternating. And I'll go down through the other hole, or the other Superduo. That creates half the flower. Again, putting on 2 Superduos, checking both holes, and 3 seed beads alternating. And here I go up through the Superduo on the other side. Then I go through the other hole of that Superduo that I'm coming out of. Adding a 4mm bead, going through the next Superduo tip, and continuing that all the way around. And once I'm going through the last Superduo, I want to continue around to the other end. So I'm going through a Superduo in 4mm. Superduo 4mm. Superduo 4mm. And the Superduo. Next I add 3 seed beads and go back through that last Superduo in the same direction. And through the next 2 seed beads. Now we add a seed bead, Superduo seed bead, checking both holes. String that on. Flip this over. And I want to go through the seed bead I'm coming out of, which is the center of these 3, plus the next seed bead, Superduo seed bead. Then I add a seed bead and go down through this seed bead. Across the Superduo. Up through the next seed bead. Add a seed bead and go through the next seed bead on this side. And through the Superduo. Then up through the other hole of that same Superduo. And we're ready to make our next flower. Start our next flower component by putting on a 4mm center color flower and a Superduo, checking both holes. We string that on. We go back down through the 4mm bead only, and through the other side of the first Superduo. And here's where we kind of want to make sure everything is pointed straight across. We add 3 seed beads and 2 Superduos, alternating, checking both holes of the Superduo, and we'll go through the other Superduo. Again, 2 Superduos and 3 seed beads alternating, and we go up through the other Superduo. Pull that tight, it completes the flower. Now we go back through the other hole of that same Superduo we're coming out of, so that we can start the outer edge. Add a 4mm bead through the next Superduo tip and all the way around. Putting on my last one, I want to continue all the way through the other end of the flower. So I'll go through this Superduo and 4mm bead, through the next Superduo and 4mm bead, Superduo, 4mm bead, and Superduo. Now I want to continue this until I have made 8 flowers or stars. And this will make about a 6.5 inch bracelet, 7 with the clasp. So if you want it longer, you may want to go for 9 flowers, but we're going to do 8 here. And so continue this pattern and I'll show you how to do the next row. I've made my 8th and final flower, and I'm putting on my last 4mm bead, and I'm going to go through Superduo and the next 4mm bead and the next Superduo. And here is where I can start the next row. I'm going to add 6 seed beads, and I'm going to skip this 4mm bead and go through the next Superduo. And as I'm going around this edge, I'm going to continue that. Add 6 seed beads and go through the next Superduo. Six seed beads through the next Superduo. Six seed beads and through the next Superduo. Here is where I will make the component between flowers. And so I'll want to go through this 4mm bead, up these 3 seed beads, and out this 4mm bead. through the 4mm, up the 3 seed beads, through the next 4mm. Then I'll add a seed bead, 4mm bead, and 4 more seed beads. And I'll string that on. I'll go back down through just the 4mm. Add a seed bead, and again I'll go through this 4mm, through the next 3 seed beads, through the next 4mm, and Superduo. Next, I put on 6 seed beads, skip this 4mm and go through the next Superduo. Next, I'm ready to do the next component between flowers. So I'll go through the next 4mm, through the next 3 seed beads, and through the next 4mm. And I add a seed bead, 4mm, and 4 seed beads. String that on. I go back down through the 4mm. Add a seed bead and go through this 4mm. Continue up through the next 3 seed beads and through the 4mm and Superduo. Add 6 seed beads, skip the 4mm and go through the next Superduo. Repeating the other component here between flowers, I'll go through the next 4mm, the next 3 seed beads, and the next 4mm. So we'll just continue that all the way to the other side. We'll go around the corners like we did here, around the other edge, and complete the same pattern along the other side. Okay, I've completed the pattern to the other end of the bracelet. So now I'm going to frame all of these 4mm beads going around the way I started the row. I add 6 seed beads, skip this 4mm bead and go through the next Superduo. add 6 seed beads, and go through the next Superduo. Now I've done that 4 times, I've gone all the way around. I'm ready to make my next component between flowers and complete basically the pattern I did along this edge, up this edge. I'm ready to put on my last little component between flowers, my last 4mm gray pearl. And I'll start by going through this 4mm, through these 3 seed beads, and through the next 4mm. Then I'll add a seed bead, 4mm, and 4 seed beads. String that on. Go back down through the 4mm. Add a seed bead and go through this 4mm. I'll continue through the next 3 seed beads. Through the next 4mm and Superduo. And to get ready for the next row, I'm going to go through 4 of the 6 seed beads around here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're ready to start the next row. But before I continue to the next row, I'm going to change or attach new thread because I'm just about running out here. So I'm going to take that off the needle. I've got a new thread here that's a couple of meters or yards long. And I'm going to tie a square knot with the ends. And with these 2 ends, I take a lighter and touch both ends with the flame, and I can feel that there's a little ball on the end, and I can now pull the ends through. There we go. And now I've got a knot connecting both of the strands, and that's small enough to go through my beads. So I'm going to thread the other end through the needle and continue onto the next row. All right, I have threaded my other end and I'm ready to start the next row. We're going to now be putting on the border color Superduos. And on the ends around the edge, we put on 4 Superduos. So I add 4 Superduos, checking both holes. And I'm coming out of this seed bead here. I want to go through the middle 2 seed beads around this 4mm bead. It's okay if these flop around, they'll get tied down later. Again, put 4 in between these. adding 4 Superduos, checking both holes, and going through the middle 2 seed beads here. Add 4 more Superduos and go through the middle 2 seed beads here. Now we've put 4 in all the spaces here around the corner, but now we're on the straight edge. So we only put 3 Superduos. 3 Superduos, checking both holes, and go through the middle 2 seed beads on the next round. Again, 3 Superduos, checking both holes, going through the middle 2 seed beads on this edge. Again, 3 Superduos, checking both holes, going through the middle 2 seed beads. So we just continue this all the way on this side, and I'll show you how to turn the corner similar to this and repeat on down the other side. Okay, I've continued putting 3 Superduos in every gap along the side, and before I start turning this corner, I just want to stretch it out a little bit to make sure it's not been, just to even things out and make sure it's still lying straight and not curving before I continue around the corner. So now that I'm going around the corner, I put 4 Superduos in these 3 gaps. And here is where we start doing 3 Superduos in every gap. We'll continue this along this side till we get to the other end, and then we'll start the next row. Okay, I'm ready to put on my last 3 Superduos, checking both holes, and I'm going to go through the middle 2 seed beads and the next Superduo. And before I proceed to the next row, I'm going to lay my piece flat and sort of stretch it out and make sure everything's evened out. Then I can go ahead and go down through the other hole of that Superduo. Here I'll start with the other color of my seed beads. I'll put on 1 seed bead and go through the tip of the next Superduo, which is the group of 3. My thread got caught under there. There we go. And I'm going to flip this over because I'm going to be working this way now. As you can tell, I'm going through this group of 3. I'm coming out of the first Superduo of this group of 3, and I put seed beads in between. So I'll add a seed bead and go through the tip of the next Superduo. Add another seed bead and go through the tip of the next two Superduos. So the third of this grouping and the first of that grouping. Add a seed bead, go through the next Superduo, add a seed bead, and go through the tip of the next two Superduos. Add a seed bead, go through the next Superduo, add a seed bead, go through the next two Superduos. And we're going to continue that pattern down the other side, and we'll show you how to turn the corner. Okay, I've almost finished going down this side here. I'm on my last group of 3 Superduos. Add a seed bead, going through the next Superduo. Add a seed bead, and instead of going through the next 2, we're just going to go through the next 1, because the next grouping is a 4 grouping around the edge. So we do that a little differently. Here's a good time to also just kind of check that you haven't been working too tight. Just kind of make sure it's still lying flat, and if not, stretch it a little bit just so it evens out. Add a seed bead and go through the first of the 4 grouping. Add a seed bead, go through the next Superduo. Add a seed bead, go through the next one. Add a seed bead, go through the next one. Add a seed bead, go through the next one. This is the beginning of the next 4 grouping. Add a seed bead, go through the next one. And on this one, we'll add 2 seed beads. So we're in between, going in between the middle of these 4 before we go to the next. And here is where we're going to circle back around and add the large seed bead for the jump ring to go through. So from here, we're going to go through the other hole of the next 2 Superduos. So I've come through these 2 that are in the middle of the 4, and we'll go back through this Superduo and seed bead. Here we put on the large seed bead and go through the next seed bead and Superduo. Here we continue to put a seed bead on and go through the next Superduo. add a seed bead, go through the next Superduo, which is the next grouping. Add a seed bead, and go through the next Superduo. Add a seed bead, and go through the next Superduo. Add a seed bead through the next Superduo. And before entering the next grouping of 3, we'll add a seed bead and go through the next Superduo, which is the first of the 3. And we'll go down up this side like we did this side. So we add a seed bead, go through the next tip, add a seed bead, go through the next 2, the last of that group and the first of the next. Add a seed bead, go through the next tip, add a seed bead, go through the next 2. Add a seed bead, go through the next tip, add a seed bead, go through the next 2. I'll continue that all the way down the other side. All right, I'm almost done going down this side, and now's a good time to kind of just check that everything's still straight and even things out with a little stretch. I'm in my last grouping of 3. I'm going to add a seed bead, go through the next tip, add a seed bead, go through the next tip, and because I'm going into the next grouping of 4, I'll add a seed bead and go through the next tip. Add a seed bead, go through the next tip, add a seed bead, go through the next tip, add a seed bead, go through the next tip, add a seed bead, go through the next tip, which is the next start of the next grouping, add a seed bead, go through the next tip, and here my thread's coming out in between, in the middle of this grouping of 4. Here is where I'll be putting on the other large seed bead, but first I'll put on 2 seed beads going through the next tip. Checking everything's still straight. I'm going to go through the other hole of the next 2 Superduos. And back up through the other hole of this Superduo and the next seed bead. Just put on these 2 seed beads and gone around and back through to where my thread is coming out in between the 2 seed beads. Here's where I add the large seed bead, the 6 or 8 seed bead, and I continue through the next seed bead and Superduo. pull that tight. Add a seed bead and go through the next tip. Add a seed bead, go through the next tip. Add a seed bead through the next tip. Add a seed bead through the next tip. Add a seed bead and through the next tip and the next seed bead. All right. This could be the finished bracelet if you like the way that looks. I'm going to continue to put some more seed beads around as a border. So we're coming out of the seed bead that's in between these grouping of 4 and this grouping of 3, and we don't want to start there. So we're going to continue through the next super duo and seed bead. Here we add 2 seed beads, go through the next seed bead, add 2 seed beads, go through the next seed bead, add 2 seed beads, go through the next seed bead, add 2 seed beads, go through the next seed bead, and we'll continue that all the way to the other end, where the next seed bead would be in between the grouping of 3 and 4. So I'll just continue this on this side and then show you how to turn the corner. Okay, I've continued along this side and I'm at the point where the next seed bead is in between the group of 3 and the group of 4 super duos. So I do something different here. I put on 3 seed beads. I skip this seed bead in between the groupings and go through the next one. Add 2 seed beads, go through the next one. Add 2 seed beads, go through the next one. And here again, we are at the next seed bead being between this group of 4 and that group of 4. So we put on 3 seed beads, we skip that seed bead in between the groupings and go through the next one. And here we just put on 1 seed bead and we go through all 3 seed beads at the tip here. The 11-0, the large seed bead, and the 11-0. Put on 1 seed bead and go through the next one. And again, we're at the point where the next seed bead is in between this grouping of 4 and this grouping of 4. So we're going to add 3 seed beads, skip that one that's in between the groupings, and go through the next one. add 2 seed beads, go through the next one, add 2 seed beads, go through the next one, and here we're at the next seed bead is between this grouping of 4 and this grouping of 3. So we're going to skip that seed bead, add 3, and go through this one. Add 2 seed beads, go through the next one, and add 2 seed beads, go through the next one. We'll continue that, adding 2 seed beads, going through the next one all the way down this side until we reach the end, where we'll do the same thing we did on this end, this curving end. I've continued along this side here, and I'm now at the point where the next seed bead would be in between this grouping of 3 and this grouping of 4. So I put on 3 seed beads, and I skip that seed bead and go through the next one. Add 2 seed beads, go through the next one. Add 2 seed beads, go through the next one. And here again, the next seed bead is in between this group of 4 and this group of 4 Superduos. So we're going to skip that seed bead. We'll add 3 seed beads and go through the one after it. We just put on 1 seed bead and go through all 3 of these seed beads at the tip. Through the first 11-0 there, through the large seed bead, and through the next 11-0. This is probably a good time to kind of just check your piece and make sure all the tension's evened out. Give it a little stretch and even out the tension. We're about to finish here. You add 1 seed bead, go through the next. We add 3 seed beads, skip the seed bead that's in between this grouping of 4 and this grouping of 4, and go through the one after it. Add 2 seed beads, go through the next one. Add 2 seed beads, go through the next one. And again, we're at the seed bead in between the grouping of 4 and the grouping of 3. So we add 3 seed beads, skip that seed bead, and go through the next seed bead. And that is our finished bracelet, but we want to kind of turn some corners and tie a knot before we cut the thread. So I'm going to continue through some seed beads along the edge here. And at some point I want to turn a corner, so I'm going to go through seed bead and Superduo, go through the other hole to turn around through a couple of those, go back through the other hole, and the next seed bead and Superduo, and here is where we can tie a knot. So I'll put my needle between the thread here, and before pulling it all the way through, I go through the loop once, through it twice, and I've tied a knot. So this is the finished bracelet. We just need to snip the ends of the thread and add the clasp. I have snipped both ends of the thread, and I'm ready to add my clasp. So I take my jump ring and I open it, feed it through the large seed bead, add the clasp, and close it. The other side just needs a jump ring, so I'll open it, feed it through, and close it. And this is our working clasp. And this is our finished bracelet.